The grand chamber of the Galactic Economic Consortium shimmered like a gilded cage, its vaulted ceilings dripping with bioluminescent chandeliers that pulsed in time with the self-satisfied murmurs of the High Arbiters. The air smelled faintly of ozone and superiority, a scent only achievable by species who had spent millennia perfecting the art of looking down their many noses. High Arbiter Nixel, a being whose iridescent exoskeleton caught the light in a way that screamed expensive, tapped a delicate claw against the obsidian podium. The sound echoed through the chamber, a calculated pause before the inevitable pronouncement of doom for some lesser civilization. Today, Nixel intoned, voice smooth as a plasma blade, we address the human problem. A ripple of disdain passed through the assembled delegates. The Caith Morans clattered their crystalline limbs in agreement, while the Vithuri coiled their tentacles in distaste. Even the Nixandra, with their 3 heads, managed to synchronize their eye rolls, a rare feat. Their innovations, disruptive. The last word curled like spoiled fruit in their mouth. They lack the proper reverence for galactic standardization. They tinker. A holographic projection flickered to life above the podium, displaying Earth, a blue-green speck in the cosmic backwater. Graphs spiraled around it, illustrating humanity's greatest sins, black market trade spikes, unlicensed tech modifications, and worst of all, improvisation. Therefore, Nixel declared, the GEC hereby enacts a full trade embargo against Sol System. No fusion cores, no medical nanites, no terraforming enzymes. Let them stew in their own chaos. The decree was met with a chorus of approving chitters. No one questioned it. No one dared. The GEC's word was law, and humanity was, after all, just another upstart species to be put in its place. Dr. Ilara Voss was elbow-deep in the guts of a half-disassembled GEC coolant pump when the transmission hit. The dingy lab in the basement of Xenoeconomic Studies reeked of burnt circuitry and desperation, a far cry from the consortium's opulence. Ilara's dark curls were piled into a haphazard bun, secured with what might have been a stripped wire. Her gloves were streaked with coolant fluid that probably wasn't supposed to glow. The alert blared from her jury-rigged comm array, a Frankenstein's monster of scavenged alien tech and human stubbornness. She yanked off her goggles, smearing more grease across her cheek, and lunged for the console. The GEC's embargo announcement played in crisp, condescending high galactic. Ilara's blood turned to ice. Void's teeth, she hissed. Her assistant, a wiry grad student named Jax, peered over her shoulder. That's bad, right? Bad? Ilara whirled on him. Jax, we import 90% of our high-tier tech. Fusion reactors, alien-supplied. Medical nanites, alien-supplied. Coffee synthesizers, also, somehow, alien-supplied. She stabbed a finger at the screen. They're cutting us off. Completely. Jax paled. So, we're screwed? Ilara's lips curled into something too sharp to be a smile. Oh no, they are. She snatched a battered datapad and began typing furiously. Get me Chen from engineering, and Martinez from biohacking, and hell, get me anyone who's ever taken apart a toaster and made it do something stupid. Jax blinked. What are we doing? Ilara didn't look up. What humans do best. The first wave of panic hit Earth like a solar flare. One moment, the orbital trade lanes hummed with the steady pulse of cargo haulers ferrying fusion cores from Proxima Centauri, medical nanites from the Zeta Reticuli manufactories, and terraforming enzymes from the lush vats of Kepler 186f. The next, silence. The Grand Economic Consortium's embargo slammed down with the finality of a guillotine. Dr. Carreau slammed down with the finality of a guillotine. Ilara Voss stood in the flickering glow of a dozen emergency holoscreens, her fingers dancing across a cracked keyboard as the graphs before her spiraled into red. They weren't bluffing, she muttered. The chamber, a repurposed Detroit auto plant still smelling of grease and old rebellion, was alive with the frantic energy of our cobbled-together team. Engineers in grease-stained jumpsuits, hackers with neural jacks still blinking, and a handful of wide-eyed grad students who'd never expected their thesis work to involve economic warfare. Across the room, Chen from engineering, a wiry woman with a perpetual smudge of coolant on her cheek, kicked a dented GEC coolant pump with her boot. "This piece of junk is our best lead?" Ilara didn't look up. "It's the only one we've got that isn't locked behind a proprietary firewall?" The aliens took their toys and went home, but they left the trash. Martinez from biohacking, a man who wore his lab coat like a cape, crouched beside the pump. "You realize this is like trying to reverse engineer a starship from a coffee maker, right? Then we'd better start brewing," Ilara shot back. Outside, the world was unraveling. News feeds splintered into chaos, hospitals rationing nanites, fusion reactors sputtering as their cores degraded, and the first riots breaking out in Jakarta over rationed food synthesizers. The United Earth Council floundered, their emergency broadcasts full of hollow reassurances. "Remain calm. Diplomatic solutions are being pursued." Ilara snorted. "Diplomacy? The GEC doesn't negotiate. They dictate." Jax, the team's resident smuggler turned logistician, tossed a datapad onto the table. "Black market's already pricing a single nanite cartridge at 6 months' salary, and that's if you can find one." A hush fell over the room as the weight of it settled. They were staring down the barrel of collapse. Then Chen let out a sharp laugh. She was elbow deep in the coolant pump's guts, her fingers tracing the intricate alien circuitry. "You're not gonna believe this," she said, grinning like Shed just found the universe's worst inside joke. "Their entire system runs on one standardized protocol. One. Like they've never even heard of backward compatibility." Ilara's pulse spiked. "Wait, you're saying..." "I'm saying their tech is fragile," Chen interrupted. "It's all built to work perfectly, in a perfect little GEC-approved ecosystem. No redundancies, no fail-safes. Just pristine, arrogant efficiency." Martinez whistled. "And we're the species that duct-taped a rover back together on Mars." Ilara's mind raced. The GEC had spent millennia refining their systems into seamless proprietary perfection. Humanity had spent the same time jury-rigging, hacking, and making broken things work in ways they were never designed to. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. "That's our edge. They standardized. We improvise." The team moved like a sparked circuit. Hackers tore into salvaged alien tech, bypassing encrypted locks with brute force creativity. Engineers cannibalized parts from Earth-made machines, welding them into grotesque hybrids that should never have worked, but did. Grad students ran simulations on repurposed gaming rigs, their calculations messy but fast. And then the first drone arrived. It slid through the plant's broken skylight on whisper-quiet repulsors, a sleek obsidian teardrop emblazoned with the GEC's insignia. Its single red eye pulsed as it scanned the room. "Scheisse," Jax breathed. Ilara didn't freeze. She calculated. "Martinez, the EM scrambler. Now." The biohacker lunged for a jury-rigged device cobbled from microwave parts and a car battery. He slapped it on just as the drone's eye flared. The scrambler whined, then screamed, sending out a burst of electromagnetic noise. The drone shuddered midair, its pristine systems overloaded by the sheer chaos of the signal. It dropped like a stone, hitting the concrete with a satisfying crack. Silence. Then cheering. Ilara crouched beside the twitching drone, prying open its casing with a screwdriver. "They're watching." "Good?" Chen blinked. "Good?" Ilara's grin was all teeth. "Now they know we're playing." Outside, the riots grew louder. Inside, the team worked faster. The embargo had begun. So had the counterattack. The GEC's surveillance drones had become a nuisance, like flies buzzing around a carcass. Elara Voss watched another one spiral out of the Detroit facility's airspace, its repulsor sputtering from the electromagnetic pulse Chen had jury-rigged from a microwave and a fusion core casing. The drone hit the pavement with a satisfying crack, and the team didn't even pause their work. "Government channels are locked down," muttered Diplomatic, their fingers flying over a stolen GEC datapad. "Every official trade request gets bounced back with embargo code 7A stamped in glowing purple. Bureaucratic bastards." Elara wiped grease from her forehead, leaving a smudge across her temple. "Then we go unofficial." Inside, the repurposed auto plant hummed with frenetic energy. Workbenches groaned under half-dismantled alien tech, coolant pumps stripped to their bones, warp stabilizers bleeding crystalline fluids, and medical nanites squirming in makeshift containment fields. Graphs, their arms sleeved in tattoos of quantum equations, was elbow-deep in a gutted GEC cargo scanner, splicing its circuits into something new. "You're joking," Chen said, tossing a fried drone battery into a growing pile. "The black market? We're scientists, not smugglers." Elara's grin was razor thin. "Today, we're both." The Zixari trader arrived in a ship that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and prayers. Its hull was a patchwork of scavenged plating, its thrusters coughed black smoke, and its landing gear screeched like a dying animal as it touched down in an abandoned Iowa cornfield. The ramp lowered, revealing a figure draped in layered cloaks that shimmered unnaturally, as if refusing to commit to a single color. "Ah," hissed the Zixari, its voice a wet rasp. "The infamous humans! The GEC whispers of you in their panic rooms." Elara stepped forward, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. "And we've brought gifts." She unzipped the bag, revealing a trove of artifacts, vintage Nintendo cartridges, a case of Tabasco sauce, and a dog-eared copy of Dune. The Zixaris' many-jointed fingers twitched. "You do understand trade." Negotiations were brisk. In exchange for Earth's cultural detritus, the Zixari handed over a data crystal containing schematics for GEC warp coils, proprietary tech forbidden to lesser species. As the Zixari ship lurched back into the sky, Chen stared at the crystal like it might explode. "This is too easy," he muttered. Elara pocketed the crystal. "They're exiles. The GEC stripped their trade rights centuries ago. We're both scraping the barrel." Back in Detroit, the team worked in shifts fueled by caffeine and spite. Graphs decrypted the Zixaris schematics, their face lit by the holographic blueprints floating above the workbench. "They're beautiful," they breathed, "and completely over-engineered. Look at this. They use a tri-phase quantum lock just to keep the housing together. We could replace it with bicycle chains." Elara leaned in. "Can we build it?" "Not with embargoed materials," Graphs admitted, "but we can approximate it." The room erupted into chaos, a beautiful clattering symphony of human improvisation. A warp coil's resonance chamber was replaced with a salvaged MRI magnet. The quantum stabilizers, rewired from a dozen fried GEC drones. By dawn, they had something that looked less like galactic tech and more like a scrap heap Frankenstein. Chen eyed it warily. "This either works or it takes out the block." Elara patted the monstrosity. "Then let's not be here when we test it." Inspector Dralk of the GEC Enforcement Division was not having a good day. His cruiser touched down in what the GEC's files listed as Earth's primary economic hub, a crumbling cityscape where humans scurried like vermin. He adjusted his immaculate uniform, the bioluminescent trim marking his rank, and sneered at the rust-streaked buildings. Primitive, he muttered to his subordinate. They'll surrender the moment they see proper authority. His drones swept the city, scanning for unauthorized text signatures. They pinged nothing, because human ingenuity, as Drak would soon learn, didn't always register on galactic sensors. In a warehouse 3 miles away, Elara's team powered up their warp coil. The machine shuddered, spat sparks, and then a tiny, unstable rift tore open in reality. It lasted 3 seconds before collapsing with a sound like a thunderclap in a tin can. Chen whooped. We just broke physics with literal garbage. Elara's comms buzzed. A message from an unknown frequency. Just 2 words. They're coming. Drak's enforcers were closing in, and the GEC didn't take kindly to humans playing with their toys. Inspector Drak's dropship descended through Earth's mob-choked atmosphere like a blade unsheathed, its polished obsidian hull gleaming with the sterile perfection of GEC engineering. Inside, Drak adjusted his compliance badge, a shimmering sigil of authority, and sneered at the planet below. Primitives, he thought. They'll be groveling within the hour. His boots touched down in what the GEC's dossier labeled a post-industrial wasteland. Detroit, Sector 3B. Instead of the expected ruins, however, Drak's 4 eyes twitched in unison at the scene before him, a throbbing, neon-lit hive of activity. Makeshift foundries belched smoke beside stalls selling fried dough, while humans in grease-stained coveralls hauled salvaged alien tech like it was scrap metal. A child, skipped past clutching a half-dismantled plasma regulator like a toy. The enforcers fanned out, their confiscation beams humming, only for a nearby welding bot to suddenly pivot and spray one with molten slag. The alien yelped, dancing as his pristine plating bubbled. A human in a frayed Detroit Tigers cap grinned. Whoops, must have glitched. Drak's mandibles clenched. You will comply with Galactic Economic Statute 7-9. Statute what now? Called a teenager from a nearby rooftop, her fingers flying over a jury-rigged control pad. Sorry, Inspector Fancy Pants, but we're kinda busy not starving. With a keystroke, Drak's enforcement drones shuddered midair, then abruptly switched to blaring yakety sax as they looped in wobbly circles. The street erupted in laughter. Drak's bioluminescent stripes flushed violet with rage. This planet is under full embargo. Every component here is GEC property. Corrected Elara Voss, stepping from the crowd, her hands smudged with engine grease. Your coolant pumps? We turn them into hydroponic filters. Those obsolete nav chips? They're now stitching together a warp coil. She tossed a datapad at his feet. Schematics flickered, showing a Frankenstein monstrosity of alien and human tech. You can't embargo ingenuity, Inspector. Drak's comlink buzzed with frantic updates. A warehouse in Mumbai was repurposing GEC medical pods into water purifiers. A collective in Berlin had hacked a cargo drone swarm to distribute food. Every confiscation order triggered 10 more workarounds. His enforcers returned empty-handed, their confiscation beams useless against the sheer volume of human defiance. You're violating intergalactic law, Drak roared. Elara smirked. Funny, your laws never mentioned reinterpreting tech, she leaned in. Face it, Drak, your embargo's a sieve. We're not stealing, we're remixing. Humiliation curdled in Drak's thorax. He'd crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds, but those species had folded the moment their luxuries were withheld. Humans? They treated scarcity like a challenge. His comlink pinged again. GEC High Command demanding results. Desperate, he activated Protocol 9, a full planetary scan to pinpoint every illicit workshop. The scan returned a flood of data, and Drak's blood ran cold. This is impossible, he muttered. The readings showed thousands of energy signatures matching GEC tech, except they were everywhere. A bakery in Osaka, a school in Nairobi, a fishing boat off Chile. The scan couldn't distinguish between stolen goods and human-made replicas because, he realized with dawning horror, there was no difference anymore. Elara watched his panic with quiet triumph. Decentralization's a bitch, huh? Drawk snarled and slammed his fist on the comlink. All units converge on Sector 3B, maximum force authorized. Alarm klaxons wailed as GEC dropships blackened the sky. But Ilara was already sprinting back to the Detroit plant, shouting into her comm, "Shen, fire up the coil! They're bringing the hammer down!" Inside the plant, the team scrambled. The warp coil, a tangled beast of scavenged parts, whined to life, its stabilization graphs spiking erratically. "It's gonna be messy," warned Chen, wiping sweat from his brow. Ilara gripped the ignition switch. "Messy's our specialty." As Drawk's enforcers kicked in the doors, the coil screamed and reality split open. The Detroit facility shook as Drawk's enforcers breached the outer doors, their plasma cutters carving through steel like warm butter. Alarms wailed, red emergency lights painting the cavernous auto plant in streaks of panic. Ilara's fingers flew over the warp coil's jury-rigged control panel, its interface a Frankenstein mess of stolen GEC subroutines and human code. The stabilization graph spiked erratically, lines jagged as a seismograph during an earthquake. Chen cursed, slamming his fist against a flickering monitor. "We're losing containment. If this thing destabilizes mid-jump," a crash echoed from the hallway, the sound of reinforced boots and the high-pitched whine of GEC stun rifles powering up. 30 seconds! Someone shouted. The warp coil screamed like a dying star, its core a writhing knot of unstable energy. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't supposed to be. The GEC's pristine, standardized tech hummed politely. This thing growled. "Do it," Ilara ordered. Chen yanked the ignition lever. Reality ripped. The air in front of the coil split open, a jagged, flickering wound in space, edges crackling with wild energy. It wasn't a clean GEC jump point, symmetrical and docile. This was a back alley stab through the cosmos, a tunnel dug with a shiv instead of a shovel. Ilara smirked, wiping grease from her forehead. "Turns out we skipped that chapter." Drawk's enforcers faltered, rifles lowering as they stared at the unstable rift. The GEC's sensors, calibrated for the smooth, predictable signatures of their own tech, wouldn't even register this thing. It was too loud, too messy, too human. Ilara hefted a data drive in one hand, the other gripping the edge of a work table as the plant trembled. "Probably, but not before this gets out." She tossed the drive to a waiting hacker, who jammed it into a transmitter. Drawk's face twisted. "You think this changes anything? The embargo stands. Your pathetic species will." The warp coil shrieked, the portal flickering violently, but it held. Across Earth, in garages and labs and repurposed factories, screens lit up with Ilara's stolen designs. A wildfire of innovation erupted in real time. A teenager in Mumbai spliced a GEC coolant unit into a motorcycle engine. A retired engineer in Buenos Aires fed alien alloy specs into a 3D printer. A smuggler on the Martian fringe laughed as her cobbled-together replicator spat out a perfect copy of a banned medical nanite. The GEC's embargo didn't just fail, it backfired. Humanity wasn't just surviving without galactic trade, they were improving it. Drawk lunged, but Ilara was already stepping backward into the portal's unstable glow. "Tell the High Arbiters something for me," she called over the roar of the rift. "You wanted us contained, but you just unleashed us." The chamber of the Galactic Economic Consortium had never known panic. Its walls, carved from the iridescent bones of dead stars, had absorbed centuries of smug pronouncements and glacial decrees. The High Arbiters' thrones, each a masterpiece of engineered dominance, hovered above the floor, as if to physically elevate their occupants above the petty concerns of lesser species. But now, for the first time in living memory, the air thrummed with something alien to the GEC. High Arbiter Nixel's bioluminescent robes flickered erratically as holographic reports flooded the chamber. Nixel's four-fingered hand crushed a data crystal. Impossible! Their warp coils were garbage. Across the chamber, a junior aide trembled. But, High Arbiter, the humans didn't fix our designs. They made them noisy. The aide projected a schematic. Where GEC warp coils were elegant loops of superconducting alloy, the human version was a Frankenstein mess of salvaged reactor shielding, repurposed fusion conduits, and what appeared to be part of a microwave. Nixel's voice dripped with disdain. This shouldn't even function. The aide swallowed hard. That's the problem. Our sensors were calibrated for clean signatures. These look like cosmic background radiation. By the time we detect them, the humans have already jumped. The Detroit facility was a graveyard of broken GEC tech and human ingenuity. Inspector Drog stood amidst the wreckage, his mandibles twitching. His enforcement drones lay in pieces, their cores ripped out to power some abomination of a warp drive. On a cracked view screen, a looped message played. Attention GEC, your embargo has been repurposed. Love, Earth. Drog's comlink crackled. Report, Inspector. Nixel's voice was ice. They're everywhere, Drog spat. Backwater colonies we didn't even monitor are transmitting human schematics. The Zixari are auctioning off authentic Earth junk. Half of it's just literal garbage they've strapped reactors to. A pause. Then Nixel's quiet fury. Bring me Dr. Voss. Ilara's hologram flickered to life in the GEC chamber, projected from some back-alley transmitter on Mars. She looked exhausted, exhilarated, and utterly unrepentant. Behind her, a human workshop hummed with activity, welding torches, shouting engineers, the clang of metal on metal. Nixel's voice boomed. You violate galactic law, Ilara grinned. Funny, we interpreted it differently. Oh, your monopoly, Ilara finished. She tossed a Zagzari snack bag into frame. Tried one? They're addictive. Also, your regulated nutrient paste tastes like despair. Nixel's robes flared crimson. You will cease all unsanctioned tech dissemination immediately. Ilara leaned in. Or what? Ilara leaned in. You'll embargo us harder? She snapped her fingers. A scruffy engineer off-screen yanked a tarp away, revealing a warp coil cobbled from a GEC surveillance drone, a coffee maker, and duct tape. This one's powered by spite. Want to see it jump? Then, from the back of the chamber, a Cathoran delegate snorted. Nixel whirled. You dare? The Cathoran raised a clawed hand. High Arbiter, with respect, we bought 3 of their coils. They work better than yours, and they're cheap. Murmurs spread. A Vathori diplomat discreetly slid a human-made data chip into their robes. Nixel's voice turned lethal. This ends now. Ilara crossed her arms. No, it doesn't. You tried to strangle us with rules, but humans breed in cracks. Your embargo didn't cage us, it taught us. She gestured to the chaos behind her. Meet the Galactic Black Market's new supplier. 3 standard cycles later, the GEC convened an emergency vote. Nixel was demoted. The embargo was lifted. And humanity? They charged for their blueprints. In a dim corner of the chamber, Inspector Drock stared at a smuggled Earth tablet playing yakety sax on loop. He didn't laugh, but his mandibles twitched. On Mars, Ilara toasted the stars with a bottle of stolen Zyxari wine. To scarcity, she murmured. Mother of invention. Somewhere, 1,000 warp coils screamed again. Standard cycles later, the GEC convened an emergency vote. Nixel was demoted. The embargo was lifted. And humanity? They charged for their blueprints. In a dim corner of the chamber, Inspector Drock stared at a smuggled Earth tablet playing yakety sax on loop. He didn't laugh, but his mandibles twitched. On Mars, Ilara toasted the stars with a bottle of stolen Zyxari wine. To scarcity, she murmured. Mother of invention. Somewhere, 1,000 warp coils screamed again. Resolves the conflict. The GEC's surrender and Nixel's demotion confirm humanity's victory. Character arcs. Ilara's triumph is cemented with her toast. Dralk's subtle humor hints at growth. Tone maintained. Bureaucratic collapse meets chaotic human celebration. Emotional punch. The final line, warp coils screaming, echoes the theme of rebellious innovation. Impact, short, sharp, and leaves the galaxy irrevocably changed. Alternative version with expanded resolution 3011 words, available upon request.